Okay, good morning and good afternoon if it's past 12 in whatever country you might be residing in, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's joining us here today. My name is Andrew Cranfield, and I am very pleased to be moderating this ELAN webinar on behalf of EBLIDA, the European Bureau of Library Information and Documentation Associations. This session is part of the ELAN initiative, the European Libraries and Associations Network, which brings together library information and cultural professionals across Europe to strengthen cooperation, share practice, and respond collectively to the major challenges facing our sector. EBLIDA works very much at the European level to ensure that libraries have a strong and visible voice in policy discussions across Europe, particularly around access to information, cultural policy, democratic participation, sustainability, and digital transformation. But equally important is how these issues play out in practice, in libraries, in communities, and in everyday realities of professional work. That's exactly the focus of today's discussion. Under the theme Libraries, Communities, and Political Challenges, European Perspectives on Civic Engagement, we will explore how libraries across Europe are supporting democracy, civic engagement, and community resilience in contexts shaped by political pressure, disinformation, polarization, and sometimes declining public trust in those public institutions. Libraries today are not just passive institutions, they're active civic spaces. I often say that libraries, it's not about books, it's about people these days. So they support access to information, but they are also enablers of dialogue, inclusion, and participation. And today we will hear perspectives from Ukraine, Serbia, Greece, Finland, France, Slovakia, and Spain, showing different contexts, but shared underlying questions about democracy, autonomy, and professional responsibility. We will work through two sessions, each followed by discussion, and I encourage you to contribute your questions and reflections throughout. So please use the chat to either ask questions along the way or when we reach the panel discussions at the end of the two sessions. But it's really good to have a vibrant dialogue and thoughts and reflections in that chat. It really creates a dynamic in this space where, of course, often we can't all see each other at the same time, and this helps to create a sense of community, I think. So please share anything in the chat. So with that, let's begin with our first speaker, who is Yaroslava Sishniska, who will speak about digital literacy and civic resilience in Ukrainian libraries in a context shaped so sadly by war and societal disruption. Yaroslava, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And you know that Ukraine's focus on digital literacy is crucial to safeguarding our sovereignty and fostering a resilient society. In other words, in our country, digital literacy has evolved from a modern convenience into a core pillar of national security, civic survival, and societal resilience. While these educational areas have been a focus for years, the ongoing hybrid and informational war with Russia since 2014 has spurred the development of innovative new tools and strategies. Through a powerful alliance with the Ministry of Digital Transformation and the United Nations Development Programme in Ukraine, the Ukrainian Library Association has become a vital partner in elevating the nation's digital literacy. A network of digital education hubs based in libraries unites now over 2,000 libraries of various levels, from national to school libraries and branches of public libraries in small villages. Ukrainian librarians play a critical role in helping local communities acquire digital skills and access essential online services. They focus heavily on supporting vulnerable populations, including internally displaced persons, minorities, women, elderly citizens, and people with disabilities. Furthermore, our colleagues do significant work bringing digital media and information literacy directly to rural and underserved regions. According to the biennial study launched by the Ministry of Digital Transformation in 2019, the percentage of Ukrainians that possess basic digital skills has climbed from 47% to 57.5% over the past 6 years. We are incredibly proud to say that librarians have contributed more than anyone to raising the digital skills of the Ukrainian public. Their work is vital investment in our nation's human capital and the resilience of our workforce. Library-based digital education hubs are becoming launchpads for digital inclusion and bridging the digital divide. By mastering essential competencies in these hubs, residents can seamlessly navigate daily online services, access reliable information, and engage directly with public and civic processes. The main innovative educational solution that libraries rely on is Dia Education. That is Ukrainian entertainment platform for reskilling and digital literacy. It allows everyone to access the best educational practices, making lifelong learning a pleasant and easy habit. Digital skills acquired in libraries facilitate the use of the e-government tools such as the Dia platform and mobile application Dia, which provide Ukrainians with access to government services and foster active civic participation in governance. When physical administrative offices are damaged or inaccessible, the state operates via smartphones. Ukrainian librarians help their communities to navigate over 150 critical services. Digital solutions address the complex challenges posed by war while ensuring transparency and accountability of the recovery process, rebuilding process, both of which are critical to Ukraine's European Union integration. Ukraine has been a major target of disinformation campaigns, and digital and media literacy library programs enable Ukrainians to identify false narratives, verify sources, and resist manipulative tactics. Whether dealing with war, economic challenges, or social upheaval, digital and media literacy help Ukrainians critically evaluate situation, avoid panic caused by false information, and respond effectively. Therefore, it helps us to maintain resilience during a crisis. Stressing the supporting democratic processes, we are sure that media, information and digital literacy help our citizens critically evaluate political messaging, fact-check information, and identify biases in media coverage. Social media combined with digital literacy provides a platform for transparency and accountability in governance. Digital literacy allows citizens to interact with platforms like EDAM, platform of e-democracy, giving them a voice through online local petitions, public budgets, and community consultations, which has fostered a vital sense of wartime societal unity. Finally, a digitally literate citizenry ensures that Ukraine's local histories, documented wartime realities, and democratic values are actively preserved and accurately projected to the global stage, effectively preventing the adversary from rewriting the narratives. We annually evaluate the effectiveness of digital education hub libraries. The user base shows a mature profile, which nearby half of all users aged 51 and older. Age 60 plus represents the largest segment, accounting for 30% of users. Age younger than 30 is a significant minority, representing 25% of the user population. Age 51 to 60 comprises 17 of the user base. Age 41 to 50 makes up 15% of users, and age 31 to 40 accounts for 13% of users. The impact of the library's training and consulting services is clear when looking at how users rate their own digital skills. Initially, the vast majority struggled with 45% rating themselves below average and another 45% at average. Post-training data reveals a massive transformation. You see a striking 67% of users now operate at an above average and advanced level, while the portion of users left with below average skills was successfully reduced to a mere 3%. So it is clear that Ukrainian libraries are turning digital literacy into a shield for civic engagement and national resilience. These spaces serve as essential pillars of community defense, giving citizens the digital armor required to overcome daily hardships, keep the economy moving, and confidently shape Ukrainians' democratic tomorrow. So this is what civic engagement in practice looks like in Ukraine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yaroslava, for truly inspirational presentation, and I'm amazed at what you have been able to achieve in such troubled times, and I think there's going to be some interesting questions there. So I like to go to our next speaker, who is Milena Georgievich, who will reflect on libraries under political pressure and the importance of professional integrity in sensitive contexts. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like first to thank Andrew and ELAN project team for this organization, for creating space where these conversations can happen. I started with a sentence which is well known to every one of us. There is a language we use when we speak about libraries and democracy. It is a reassuring language. We say open spaces, access, inclusion, public trust. But I'm not here to challenge any of that. But I want to begin from a different place, because the language is only tested when everything is stable. But things are not stable at the moment. Can I continue?
Yes, please
okay,
do.
I will continue.
It's okay at the moment. Yeah, great.
Okay, and the questions that ELAN project raises about civic engagement, about libraries and political pressure are not abstract for me. They describe a situation I work in. The democratic role of libraries is not tested in good times. It is tested when public trust becomes fragile, when institutions are exposed to pressure, when professionals begin to calculate the cost of speaking, like me at this moment. So, my question today is not how can libraries support democracy? My question is sharper. What happens to the democratic function of a library when the institution itself is placed under political, administrative, technological, or economical pressure? In short, how pressure actually works? That's the question. It does not arrive as a formal act of censorship. There is no document, no official prohibition, no moment you can point to and say, here, there is it begin. It begins with consequences. And that's my point. It begins with consequences. And please, slide 2. A program is cancelled. No explanation given. Funding disappears. A professional becomes invisible, not dismissed, but loses their role. Internal regulation change quietly. Appointments become politically shaped, and gradually people begin to know what should not be said. Censorship no longer needs to be explicit, because self-censorship has already started to work. I come from Serbia, and I want to give you a concrete measure of this. Since December 2024, Serbia has been living through an extraordinary period of student protests, one of the largest civic mobilization in the country's recent history. In that context, cultural institutions did something remarkable. They began to find each other informally, without institutional mandates. Employees of cultural institutions, including the National Library of Serbia, formed communities that tried to respond to what was happening in their society. Library professionals publicly supported the students, defending the right to freedom of speech and expression, the right to critical thinking that would not be twisted for political purpose or labeled as acting against the interests of the state. For several months, libraries tried to connect and create synergy. It only partially strengthened this cultural community, but it was real and it was visible. Out of that community, something concrete was born: the Free Trade Union of Librarians of Serbia, a formal body now tasked with defending the democratic rights of the library profession and the dignity of library work. The broader community of arts and culture, we say in Serbia ZUK, works on a wider front, documenting victims of repression, monitoring the state of culture from all angles. In a single month, November to December 2025, they collected 37 document cases of intimidation, dismissals, censorship, and withdrawn funding. This is not complaint about Serbia. This is a description of one mechanism and a response. And this slide, you can see, is something that is very important, and next thesis. Contemporary pressure on cultural institutions functions less as prohibition and more as the production of consequences. So, non-partition does not mean silence. Libraries must be non-partition. We all, I am sure that we all agree with that statement. But a library cannot become a party office, propaganda machine, or a space where one political position replaces another. And non-partisanship is not the same as a silence. And neutrality is not the same as professional fear. A library can be non-partisan and still defend freedom of expression. Non-partisan and still resist censorship. Non-partisan and still protect professional autonomy. Non-partisan and still insist that public knowledge must not be subordinated to political convenience. This is a little digression. The critical librarianship literature is unambiguous of this. For example, Emily Drabinski argues that library work is never neutral because librarians collect, organize, make accessible, and preserve materials, and those choices structure intellectual worlds. Emily McEnroe shows that the very idea of library neutrality was historically shaped by political pressure. And our citizen, Vuka Jeremic, writing in the Serbian context, and she argues that in political sensitive context, critical awareness becomes the ethical form of the profession itself. And there is a next problem. I will escape this because of the time, the part NEMO barometer and etc. and 53 museum professionals across 31 countries. And I will talk about next subject, and that's IE infrastructure. I was talking about society and political pressure, but there is another pressure that all the humankind is facing now. That's AI infrastructure. AI infrastructure. There is that's a second layer of a pressure, less visible, but structurally just as significant. The question is no longer whether libraries will use artificial intelligence. They will, of course. They already do it in discover systems, metadata, research support, licensing, information literacy, communication. But the real question is this: can libraries translate their core professional values intellectual freedom, privacy, openness, accountability, source integrity into an environment where knowledge is increasingly mediated by proprietary AI systems. Political pressure disciplines speech through consequences. AI system discipline knowledge through ranking, opacity, surveillance, licensing, and invisibility. These are different mechanisms. Yes, they are different mechanisms, but they raise on shared question. And that question is, who controls the conditions under which knowledge becomes visible, credible, accessible, and usable? And the second thesis, AI literacy must not become AI obedience. Libraries should not become local help desk for technologies governed elsewhere. They should become public institutions capable of questioning, contextualizing, and democratically interpreting AI-mediated knowledge. So the question is, at the end, what must be protected? When a cultural professional becomes vulnerable, like I was talking at the beginning of my speech, I will repeat, when a cultural professional becomes vulnerable because of public speech, the institution loses part of its democratic substance. I know this not only for documents and data, I know it from direct professional experience of how civic engagement inside a cultural institution can produce institutional consequences, lose of role, marginalization, professional isolation. I mention this not as a personal grievance, but because it illustrates the mechanism precisely. And now, what AI has to do with that? It has, because where institutions are vulnerable like that, literacy will be, AI literacy will become AI obedience. That's the great problem for all humankind now. And a library under pressure do not defend books. We will agree with that. It defends the conditions under which a society can still remember, verify, interpret, speak, and think freely. In the age of artificial intelligence, this responsibility does not diminish, it becomes greater, and I think that this task is the harder task we had in all the history of libraries and maybe in democratic experience. Thank you, everybody, and I'm sorry for these technical problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milena. Honestly, the technical problems became a lot better. So I think we heard everything that you were saying, which was incredibly thought-provoking and really interesting. I think your sentence about AI literacy must not become AI obedience will be one that I will be quoting along the way. I think that frames a lot in a few words. So wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure there will be a good debate after that. And our final speaker in this session is Lida Tesne, who will explore storytelling as a tool for inclusion, healing, and community building. Lida, the floor is yours.
So, hello, thank you so much for the invitation. It's always a great pleasure to be among peers and colleagues and people who believe in the power of libraries as spaces for care and also for social change. Because I'm based in Athens, Greece, born and raised here, I'm going to start by saying something that is coming from our ancient ancestors. So in ancient Greece, libraries were sometimes described as places of healing for the soul. So this evocative phrase reminds us that libraries have long been associated not only with knowledge, but also with care. And long before the modern concept of public services or cultural infrastructure existed, libraries were somehow imagined as places where the mind and spirit could find restoration through encounter with stories, ideas, and reflection. And today's, as we heard from the previous speakers, as societies face increasing polarization, digital overload, loneliness, and social fragmentation, the idea of libraries as spaces of care feels more relevant than ever. So I'm gonna try and give a little bit of context about what does it care mean today and what stories and storytelling has to do with it. And then I will talk briefly about our work in the Athens Comics Library. So what does care mean today? So care today extends far beyond the intimate sphere of family or healthcare. It has become a social and political concept that speaks to the way communities sustain one another in times of uncertainty and change. Care involves attention, empathy, presence, and the recognition that individuals that do not exist in isolation, but within networks of mutual dependence. And if we think libraries are at their core are public institutions built around a simple but powerful principle that knowledge should be available to everyone. Yet the role of libraries extends beyond, and they offer something that many contemporary urban environments struggle to provide: a space where people can simply exist without the pressure to consume, produce, or even perform. And this openness is itself an act of care. It signals that every individual has a right to curiosity, to intellectual growth, and cultural participation, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, education level, or socioeconomic status. And on the other hand, stories have been part of our nature forever. And as human beings, we understand the world through narratives. Stories help us to interpret our experiences, connect with others, and imagine different futures. Stories do more than transmit knowledge. They hold emotional and social space. And sometimes when communities gather around around the stories, they also hold a space where all voices can be heard. And libraries can serve as custodians of these narratives, preserving both collective memory and individual expression. And within themselves, readers encounter voices from distant times and places, discovering perspectives that expand their understanding of the world. So the Athens Comics Library was designed 10 years ago as a space of inspiration and creation of experiences, learning and exploration, participation, creativity, and experimentation around the collection of approximately 3,000 comics and graphic novels. Our team believes in the healing value of storytelling, an approach that has supported numerous people, members of our community. Our work aims to hold space to share those impactful stories and lived experiences, and at the same time encourage people to learn how to listen to someone else's story and realize that humanity is composed of many overlapping stories. So since 2008, we design and facilitate educational workshops, and since 2016, we have also been active in offering programming for refugee communities. And the past years, we design, deliver, and co-lead community empowerment and engagement programming. In the heart of our practice, you will find those values. The first is the social arts engagement. We believe that arts and culture can be an amazing tool and platform for bringing people together, for opening up difficult discussions, for creating those safe and brave places that we all need today in order to feel more secure and more connected with one another. We also enable the positive social contact, trying to create that space where everyone can feel that is being heard and seen. And we support local activities by inviting our communities to co-design with us the programming. We also try to tell the real human stories, but avoiding tokenizing the stories of the communities that we serve, because this is a very big topic, how respectful we stand to the people who trust us with their stories. Our practice is also community-led, meaning that we put communities in the heart of our programming, not designing for the communities, but designing with the communities. And of course, we follow a trauma-sensitive and identity-informed approach. And within the years, we've been proud enough to have supported amazing projects such as the Beta Hub, which was a program that lasted for 3 years, and it was aimed to offer education and creative activities for preschool refugee children and their caregivers. And also the manual that we co-developed with an amazing team of refugee mothers on how comics can be used as a tool for social integration, but also for improving emotional intelligence among migrant and refugee communities. Or the Takeaway Art project that happened during COVID time in a very challenging era for all of us. We tried to think how we would stay connected with our community. So we enclosed the experience of the library within a box that was delivered monthly to our community members. And within the box, we had stories translated in 4 languages: Greek, English, Farsi, and Arabic, I think 5 languages, and French, and all and activities and all the material that the caregiver would need in order to deliver those activities with the children at home. It was also our response to the digital overload that we had during COVID time, and trying to figure how we will stay connected with more craft-oriented and tangible material, and stay away a little bit from the screens. Or our other amazing program that we are very proud of, the Refugee Week Greece, developed with our partner organization, We Are Community. And here on the slide, you can see a comic that we co-created with members of our wider community, trying to understand what trauma and what healing means for all of them. Or our program, No Direction Home, using stand-up comedy, again, as a platform for mixed communities to share their stories, but also develop skills and connect in a bigger community, and feel that they are not alone. They're not the only ones that are facing particular challenges, or a recent program called Libraries on Prescription, a program that aimed to to observe and see how libraries can serve as sanctuaries, how can libraries and stories can provide, let's say, a way of intervening and weaving mental health challenges, a program that expanded in 5 areas all over Greece, inviting local libraries to join the program as tandem with specific communities that they have identified that they were struggling with mental health challenges. So throughout all this journey and our, let's say, experience, we have witnessed how stories and libraries as let's say the homelands of stories can foster that sense of belonging, can foster care, can transform care in a shared practice. So librarians and people and community workers in the libraries curate materials with attentiveness to community needs, and readers from their behalf participate by engaging with stories that broaden their horizons. And events bring people together in ways that foster mutual understanding, and the library becomes a living ecosystem of relationships rather than simply a storage facility of books. So the evolution of libraries also in the digital era further illustrates this role. While access to information has expanded dramatically through online platforms, the physical presence of libraries remain essential. Digital knowledge is abundant, but meaningful spaces for reflection and human connection are increasingly rare. So in times of crisis, this role becomes particularly visible. And during periods of social tension, economic hardship, or public health emergencies, libraries often become lifelines for community. They provide access to reliable information, internet connectivity, educational support, emotional refuge. And librarians frequently act as informal guides, helping visitors navigate complex systems and resources. And these everyday acts of assistance illustrate how care operates within the library environment. And care doesn't have to be always dramatic or visible. It often takes the form of small gestures: a librarian helping someone to locate a book, a quiet table where students can focus, a reading program that introduces a child to the joy of story telling. As societies continue to change, the importance of such spaces is likely to grow. Increasing urban density, digital saturation, social isolation highlight the need for environments that encourage presence, dialogue, and reflections. And libraries are this kind of environment. So embrace your libraries, embrace the communities around libraries, and see the value beneath the shelves and the books. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll be happy to share more about our programming or answer to any questions.
Thank you so much, Lida. It was it's one of those presentations where I really think, oh, libraries could be fun as well, and can really interact in a way that you don't necessarily think that all libraries do. And I'm going to book my visit to Athens soon, because I have to come and see your library, I think. But we now have some minutes to for a discussion. And as I said before, please have your questions ready and write them in the chat, and I will facilitate them on to our panelists. But maybe I can get the ball rolling and ask you, and you know, it's a question for all three of you, because I think that that we have in the times of resilience, the democracy, the well-being, the care library. Do you think this has also meant that there is a change of perception of libraries from the users in each of your country? Do you really feel that is happening? Or do you sometimes feel we're doing a lot more than we used to be doing, or we're discovering new avenues to go down, but people still have a fairly traditional perception of libraries? Or do you feel that is changing? Maybe Yaroslava, I can ask you first, because I think that what was happening there is such a dynamic in times of trouble, but you feel that citizens are also really seeing that difference?
I think that it depends on their practice, because some citizens, they use their local library and it is a small library in a small village. Other citizens, they are users of the big national or state library or regional library, and they see the more opportunities at that library. And typically, we rely on their impressions, and we conduct different questionnaires, and also we used to talk to them every time what they like, what they dislike, what are their ideas. And what I can say that we have a big volunteering movement now in Ukraine, and also it is related to libraries. So people would like to change something, and even in war times, even under the martial law, probably if you use the martial law, so you have some restrictions, and the freedom of speech and pluralism of opinion is partly restricted in specific ways. But people would like to talk, people would like to be engaged, and they see the new roles of libraries as the leaders of their community and the space where they can speak freely, they can share ideas, they can create something new, and also they have their voice. So that is from our perspective.
Thank you, Yaroslava. Milena, can you hear us still? Maybe not. Lida, do you think that your example is changing you? Oh, sorry, Milena,
Yes.
You're with us? Yes.
I'm here,
Yep.
Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, I think the perception of libraries has changed, but in a paradoxical way. On the one hand, people still often imagine libraries in a very traditional sense: books, reading rooms, catalogs, silence. On the other hand, many people today think less and less about libraries at all. When they need an answer, they go directly to Google, to social media, or now increasingly to AI tools such as GPT chat and so on and so on. So the challenge is not only that libraries are perceived traditional. The deeper challenge, in my opinion, is that libraries risk becoming invisible in the digital imagination of citizens. But this situation also gives libraries a new role, and that's important. I think that's we have to say it every day, every minute, and every second. Libraries have a new role. AI gives a quick answers, or some answers, with assistance, with algorithms, and etc. Libraries must offer something different: context, trust, verification, human judgment, and public responsibility. Human judgment and public responsibility. These are the question of libraries and librarians in the present and future tense, in the future. So I would say libraries should not compete with AI as a machine of speed. It is impossible and it is absurd. They should become spaces of orientation in a world where answers are becoming easier, but understanding is becoming harder. And it's last minute to go through that space and save us. I'm not catastrophic. Well, I'm not pessimist, but maybe it sounds like that.
No, I don't think so, Milena. I think you so elegantly put into words what many of us are thinking, and yes, the one of the dangers is becoming invisible in that digital age, which I think is yeah, a very correct assessment. Lida, do you want to comment on the question and whether the comics library has also changed users' perceptions of what a library is, and maybe also your colleagues in the library community in Greece?
Yeah, of course. Very briefly, I would say that in Greece, in general, libraries are not like the part of our, general culture. Although we have libraries everywhere, in the smallest village in Greece, you will find a tiny library. Most of the times are seen as, spaces where someone has to go to study during exams or things like that. There was a big movement a couple of years ago that tried to change the narrative around libraries and that are not only books or study spaces, but they can offer different experiences, various experiences to the communities. And I think that during the big migration and refugee crisis 10 years ago, libraries started slightly to change their orientation and becoming more like community spaces and not only libraries per se. And I'm gonna pick up a little bit the comment on the chat by Francesca that says that in Italy, governments are defunding public services. I think this is common in many countries. Most of libraries are operating with are understaffed, or they don't have access to resources. But I think also that the impact that a library can have in a community can be so great and can be also so tangible. For example, we do like social impact reporting every year to measure how our programming is changing the lives or of our communities. And I think there is also a movement, a European movement from various organizations through surveys and through advocacy and also through lobbying to restore the role of libraries as a very important part of democracy, of literacy, of connectivity and inclusion.
Thank you, Lida. Yes, I certainly get the impression that the European Commission and others in the European institutions are thinking culture, thinking libraries, are thinking literacy, very much on a platform of sustaining those European values, which are really important. So I think there's a lot of nice words being said, but as you said, the funding crisis and sometimes the skills crisis is something that we will need to work on nationally, I think, to live up to those rather nice words. There is a question for you, Jaroslava, in the chat from Beba Ivane, who is the vice chair of the Latvian Library Association, and she asks, I would like to ask whether you have any statistics on the percentage of the Ukrainian population who are library users? In addition, what challenges do you face in reaching people who do not use libraries, especially in the context of helping a broader segment of society identify disinformation and propaganda?
I am very thankful to Bible for this question. It's very important. And yes, we have the statistics, but it is not truly 100% because we don't have the data how many population is now in Ukraine. Before the war, it was about 38, approximately 40 million of inhabitants, and as we know, about 8 or even more than 8 million they are now abroad of Ukraine. So our population in Ukraine is critically significantly getting smaller. And also about the our library system as a result of the full-scale invasion, more than 1,200 libraries were destroyed, and fully destroyed it is about 300 libraries, and currently about 50 communities, they don't have libraries at all. Also, we lost about 5 million our library collections. It's items of library collections. It is about books and periodicals. And the recent statistics is about more than 7 million visitors and library readers. So we can say it's probably the 25% of our population, the Ukrainian population. And sure, we have such challenges to reach people who do not use libraries. We rely on this on our partners, because many non-government organizations, they have different courses, they have different programs about disinformation, about propaganda, about false news and other things. And also the Ministry of Culture, it was also when named as Ministry of Culture and Strategic Communication the past few years. So they have the special programs and they translated it in media and other channels. And we hope that this information reached to that people who are not currently visited the libraries. Thank you again for your question.
Thank you, Lasla. Milena, you would like to comment?
Yes. I would like to react to what Yaroslava said, because here in Serbia as well, we have a history of National Library of Serbia, which was completely destroyed in the Second World War. Not only the building, but the whole our memories, books, collections of newspaper and medieval treasury, everything that we had was completely burned out. So I have to say that the destruction of several hundred libraries in Ukraine is not only the destruction of buildings. When a library is destroyed, a community loses part of its memory, its continuity, and its right to understand itself. Books can sometimes be replaced, but the symbolic damage is much deeper. It is attack on cultural identity. And this is the excellent excellent issue for the speak I had before Lida. This shows, this what Yaroslava said, showed why libraries are not neutral or marginal institutions in a moment of war, crisis, or authoritarian pressure. Libraries become visible precisely because they protect something essential: language, evidence, human dignity, memory.
And we have a another question from my colleague from Denmark, Claudia. What can libraries in countries where it is significantly easier to run a library like Denmark do to help those who are under pressure? That's a good question, I think. Milena, would you maybe take that up?
Yes.
Because I think it's we see, and it's something we obviously discuss in an organization like EBLIDA. You know, how can we make sure that we support?
Well, it is when libraries are under pressure, but I don't know how in which kind of a pressure the libraries are in Denmark. Well, when libraries are under pressure, the first thing they can do is refuse to become invisible. Refuse to become invisible, despite the consequences. And of course, you have to know that it is a kind of a sacrifice. You have to do that if you don't want to become invisible, and you can feel the pain. Pressure often works by isolating institutions, making professionals silent, and turning serious problems into technical or administrative issues. Libraries should resist that by documenting what is happening, communicating clearly with the public, and building alliances with citizens, media, universities, culture workers, internationals, organizations like this one, which is hosting us today. Libraries do not have political power in the narrow sense, well, but they have symbolical power, professional credibility, and public trust. So in the moment of crisis, these are not small things. So I would say shortly, libraries should protect their professional integrity, speak in the language of facts, and remind society that attacks are never only attacks on the culture, they are attacks on the public sphere itself. Well, something like that. In this short time.
Thank you, Milena. Leader Yaroslava, do you want to come in here?
Yeah, I'm thinking now that, for example, Athens Comics Library is part of a consortium where other organizations, like big organizations like the European Cultural Foundation, the Aarhus Public Library in Denmark, and also the Public Libraries 2030 in Belgium. And we have developed this new project called the Buddies, which aims to somehow support through not only resources and trainings, but also with building a community of practice among librarians around Europe in order to respond to this somehow imbalanced, let's say, spread of either funding or resources among the librarian sector. So I think that countries or libraries who have this privilege to to flourish in a more stable or a more let's say safe environment, can also, you know, advocate and press a little bit more for the importance of the role of libraries across Europe. And I have to say here that I totally agree with Milena and Yaroslava that libraries cannot be neutral, as also care cannot be neutral. It's an act. It's a political act most of the times, because you take clearly a position and you advocate and you fight the good fight for the values that you believe. So I think that, you know, countries that have, again, I would repeat myself, this privilege can play a bigger role in, you know, advocating and lobbying for supporting the role of libraries across all countries.
Thank you, Lida. Well, I think the time is now not slipping away for us, because we're on time, but we will bring this part of the this part of our event here today to a close. So the first session, and we will have this short 5-minute break, and hope to see you all back in 5 minutes to discuss what I think has been some important issues. And I think this all your inputs today have been really, really great, and I think they really also qualify the work of the associations, because what you're saying is so important at every level. And Milena, you said the libraries do not have power. You can always discuss that. The associations, I think, have some power or a little power.
Yes.
And it is our role, both at a pan-European level, but at the national level, to make that power work for the benefit of all the libraries. See you in 5 minutes' time at 11:46. Okay, so we're back in the room, so to speak. I hope everybody had the possibility for a little break, a coffee, or whatever was needed. And we've changed a little bit the running order. So I'd now like to welcome Ondrej Latka from Slovakia, who will discuss library advocacy and political pressure on cultural institutions. Ondrej, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the word. My name is Ondrej Latka. I'm from Slovak Library Association, and now I want to tell you about the situation what is in Slovakia in the culture sector. Around the world, political influence is increasingly shaping cultural institutions, often replacing expertise with loyalty. Unfortunately, Slovakia is no exception. Since 2023, when we have election in Slovakia, Slovak culture has forced some of the most turbulent changes in its modern history. Political decisions, controversial appointments, and intervention across the cultural sector have undermined trust and stability. Today, I would like to share how these developments have affected libraries and the wider cultural community. So, the Slovak Library Association is independent, voluntary, and open interest association of the public accessible libraries in the Slovak Republic, and the aim of the association is support development and cooperation of the libraries to create positive image of libraries and promote the agenda of technical and technological development. Okay, we have 4 pillars in our association. First is advocacy, raising the social status and visibility of the libraries. Second is legislation, because we want to be a partner, for example, of a Ministry of Culture or Ministry of Education, and participate of making library laws or any strategic documents. Then development, creating better conditions for library operation via founders, and networking is very important pillar. Professional education and international cooperation with, for example, EBLIDA or IFLA, but also making connection between libraries here in Slovakia or behind the borders, or with any companies around the cultural sector. Okay, we are standing together in Slovakia, and Slovak Library Association remains at the absolute forefront of cultural defense, aligning with unified effort across the nation. Now we are deeply integrated with a nationwide platform called Open Culture, which linking over 300 organizations and 1,800 cultural professionals in Slovakia. So it's really big organization now. Okay. So our goal is to unite the Slovak cultural community to protect our institution from destructive political interference and implement collective action that protect democratic value in the arts. Therefore, the cultural strike was made. By joining the cultural strike, association immediately entered a formal phase of strict alert. The objective was to promote stability and continuity by avoiding rapid, centrally imposed organizations changes. The main objective is to put immediate stop to devastating intervention by the Ministry of Culture into the cultural sector at all administrative levels, from major national heritage to local libraries. Despite widespread historic mobilization and peaceful protest across Slovakia, the current political leadership remains unresponsive to the demands of the cultural sector. This indifference highlights the urgent need to robust structural international advocacy to keep the situation visible outside our borders. Here is the picture from protest in Bratislava, and it's happened in most of the city in Slovakia last year, from big city to little cities. In Slovakia, we have a fund for support of the arts, which distributes finance across the entire cultural sector. And it is also primary funding stream for temporary arts acquisition and library development. The Slovak Art Council is a public self-governing institution providing critical state-funded support for Slovakia literature, artistic production, acquisition, and library technology. Sudden political reorganization of board structure coupled with arbitrary changes to finance allocation has effectively removed professionals' peer-reviewed communication from the process. Slovak Library Association was only one professional library organization in Slovakia to openly and publicly challenge the Ministry of Culture's destructive interventions. As a direct consequence of this bold stance, Slovak Library Association was immediate political retaliation and was left entirely without the public financial support. What we do, like next steps, is nominate. We still continue submitting top tier expert nomination for the Council Slovak commissions to preserve professional integrity, then submitting our own major strategic project, and all through under severe political scrutiny, we refuse to halt project creation. Actively participating in a legislative review of the Culture Recovery and Resilience Plan, named PUC, to rebuild structural damage. Okay, and the last sentence is libraries are not core foundation of any free, democratic, and educated society. So we never give up and fighting for the Slovak libraries. Thank you for your solidarity. Thank you for your solidarity and attention.
And thank you for this presentation, which again shows that our library communities are under pressure, certainly in some places in Europe. And as Claudia asked before, we need to make sure that we stand together as a profession. And we realize that the circumstances in some nations are very different. But if one library community falls, then we all fall, so to speak. I'd like to give the word to our next speaker, who is from Finland, Elina Eriola, who will speak about libraries as forums for democracy and civic participation. Elina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm delighted to be here, and I would like to thank you for inviting me and organizing this important webinar. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Elina Eerola, a specialist from the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra. I'm working in the team called the Democracy Innovations Project. I would like to tell you about our project Libraries as Forums of Democracy, which we had in 2020 to 2021. But before that, I will tell you a little about our organization, Sitra. Sitra is Finland's innovation fund. It operates under the Finnish Parliament, but is financially independent. Basically, Sitra funds the public sector, such as municipalities and cities, as well as third sector organizations. We also run experiments, seminars, and workshops, and produce studies and reports. We are living in a time when democracy is being challenged. For example, in Finland, we have unequal participation. We have people who take part and people who don't, and the gap between them is growing. We have declining voter turnouts, rising polarization, disinformation, and so on. That's why we need to promote democracy and participation and involve citizens in decision-making processes. Libraries can play a key role in this, as they are important public spaces and local community resources. Let's see the official role of libraries in Finland. By law, every municipality must have a library. So, last year we had in Finland 308 municipalities and about 700 public libraries. The Public Library Act was updated in 2017. Under the Finnish Library Act, public libraries must promote democracy, freedom of expression, and active citizenship. They also must promote societal and cultural dialogue. So, what was the project about? The Libraries as Forums of Democracy project aimed to support libraries in their democratic role, strengthen dialogue between citizens and decision makers, provide spaces for public discussion, and scale the approach nationally. Why did we consider this is important? Well, we have the quite new library law, as I told you. The Finnish government has a focus on reinforcing the library's legal role as a forum of democracy. And Sitra wanted to help to strengthen Finland's position as a model democratic country with a capacity for renewal. Which libraries took part in the pilot? We asked 6 different sized libraries from all around Finland to join the project. We wanted them to be from different language areas. In Finland, we have 2 official languages, Finnish and Swedish. Also, in the north of Finland are Sami people, and they speak 3 different Sami languages. So we were using many languages in the project. Here are a couple of examples what kind of methods, events and cooperation libraries had. The first one, the library hosted global to local online events about the EU and how its decision affects local communities. Here, in the first photo, Finnish member of the European Parliament, Sirpa Pietikäinen, is presenting the European Green Deal and what it means to residents of Oulu. Second method, the library organized training on having societal impact for young people and meetings with local decision makers. And I can tell you that one example proposed was building a diving platform at the local lake. Third one, the library arranged election panel discussions for specific target groups. It was also possible to send WhatsApp and voice messages to political candidates through the library. Fourth one, library also found creative ways to promote civic engagement. Some ideas included organizing an evening of political songs in a local bar before municipal elections, or hosting a graffiti workshop for young people, but these were not implemented during the pilots. These activities could help the library reach new audiences outside its main building. Here are some press highlights along the way, which I'm very proud of. The library's pilots were in the regional newspapers and on the local TV news of the National Broadcasting Company. How can libraries promote democracy? We created a guidebook that brings together best practices and case examples from the pilots that can be applied in other libraries. It provides practical advice on organizing different types of events and building collaboration with various stakeholders. And the guidebook offers a comprehensive toolkit for implementing these methods. You can download the guidebook in English from Sitra's website. What were the results and how did we scale up? The Finnish Parliament allocated 1 million euros to support libraries in adopting these tools and strengthening their role in democracy. Using this funding, the state agency awarded grants to libraries to strengthen their democracy work between 2021 and 2023. A total of 57 applications were received from across Finland. After the project, democracy work became part of the official role of librarians in some libraries. It was great to see that the pilots also had an impact on library structures. Still, nationwide, librarians felt they didn't have enough staff or the skills to promote societal and cultural dialogue. Overall, libraries' democracy work has grown stronger over time and is now more common than before. Thank you for your attention. I'm interested to hear your comments and questions during the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think I'm probably not the only person in the audience here to be slightly jealous of the Finnish library sector. It is often seen to be the pinnacle of libraries in Europe, and I think what you were telling us there was also a good example of this. And I think and you raised the issue yourself that we have so many strategic directions that we want to take, but the skills and sometimes the lack of skills in implementing this is something that we have to be, I think, very aware of to be a success. Let's go to our next speaker, who is Raphael Betts, who will discuss critical librarianship and the role of libraries in addressing inequality and defending democratic values. Raphael, I give the word to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm not going to present a case study, but just some of reflection from a researcher perspective on LIS, Library Information Science. So I think that resisting deleterious environments like we are facing now requires some ability to recognize some signs of a troubled society decline, and maybe even before it reaches its crisis point. And because libraries do not exist on the margins of the society, librarians can also observe and respond to social troubles based on their expertises and within the documentary and social spaces and communities they maintain. This observation of science requires looking at the present with political and ethical rigor, and without refusing to see what we ourselves are a sign of. And this stance has a name. It's critical librarianship. It is an invaluable tool for understanding what is at stake in troubled times, when it's sometimes difficult to identify what is the threatening and how it's threatening the possibility of democracy. So that's what I would like to share with you. So what is critical librarianship? It's first and foremost a stance to adopt toward what our societies offers, like discourses, services, and institutions. It stems from the Frankfurt School, whose early proponents like Adorno, Benjamin, Horkheimer, or Marcuse. In the fascist context of the 1930s, they questioned the role of mass media and institution in reinforcing the authority of group and individuals, in consolidating social norms by constantly presenting socially accepted behaviors, while of course invisibiling and disqualifying others. So what critical librarianships is, refer to that critical philosophy, involves highlighting how these capitalist logics also permeate libraries' collection and the services offered, the staff, even the organization, how it imposes structures and norms and mandates upon them. So the critical stance can help us to diversify collection and also showcase what is not necessarily legitimized by the major media outlets and editions and publishers and so on. It also means maybe focusing on social justice to restore a place for those whom society and its norms exclude. Incidentally, it's important for libraries, I think, to develop analytical framework to assess whether our libraries are just or not. And there are frameworks based on the ethics of care. We discussed the ethics of care before. And you can see the work of Marie Desmartel in Quebec, which is about ethics of care and social justice. And it's interesting for libraries, I think, because they require a shift away from existing norms. They foster a healthy critical stance. So the sound attitude of nothing about us without us stems from a critical stance, which allows us to broaden our perspective and make room for everyone. And finally, this critical stance also invite us to recognize its impact on librarians themselves. And in this regard, we can only encourage you to read Fobazi Hetar writings on working condition, management, and power dynamics within library teams. So critical librarianship is also an attitude. It stands with also an attitude that has evolved from the work of French philosophers associated with what we call French theory, like Foucault, Derrida, and Rodin. And they encourage development of a critical attitude. Foucault said, a way of being, a disposition of the mind that leads us to action and requires becoming aware of the kind of self-evident truths, familiarity, and modes of thinking upon which the practices we accept as self-evident are based. The idea is to go on to think about this evidence until they are no longer self-evident. So critical librarianship involves challenging the taken for granted assumption that must be disconstructed in order to act differently. It's primarily applied to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it calls for an anti-discriminatory approach to services, spaces, and collection. So for example, with rethinking classification, indexing, and metadata to recognize what system of knowledge, organization, and access says and constructs. This is the case for the work of decolonizing, oh, it's very difficult to say, decolonizing catalogs. It has been done in Canada, for example. Also for feminist classification work, maybe you know the work of the Glasgow Women Libraries, which state that they are using a feminist classification scheme created to challenge bias, center women's voice, and make knowledge more accessible to everyone. So this attitude engage also the librarians we are with our own history as librarians. We must therefore encourage librarians to develop a genuine awareness of the historical dimension of our public practices. We must strive to understand what the present carries with it, which in fact calls both a culture of ideas and a culture of critical engagement with those ideas. So the question is to examine why, from a both historical and forward-looking perspective, we provide the service we offer. This will certainly require us to take a critical look at the library itself as an institution, and that must confront its own history. This critical attitude must therefore also be accompanied by a situated stance and following Donna Haraway, because our interpretation of the world as librarian, but also as librarian living there, or maybe as, for me, a white woman, 40 years and something years old, etc., etc. So our interpretation of the world are always interpretation from a particular perspective. So our choices must be explicit, I think, because they are not insignificant. They are not the only way of thinking and acting in the world. Adopting a situated stance also means seeing and hearing the other voice, the other story. And for us, this connects to cultural rights. And finally, critical librarianship is also the legacy of what we call critical pedagogy. This tradition with Paulo Freire, Gramsci, Giroux, hold the idea that pedagogy and knowledge transmission, in fact, so it's concerning libraries too, have a political purpose to emancipate people and thus to expose oppression and awaken everyone's consciousness. So critical pedagogy, and alongside with the critical sociology of Bourdieu and Passeron, shares a common focus on questioning the role of cultural and educational institutions, schools, museums, libraries. In other words, for them, culture and its institution is political and by no means neutral. The critical librarianship therefore calls on the library to assume responsibility in highlighting the power dynamics that might otherwise go unnoticed. And in this regard, the library is not neutral, since all cultural institutions carry a narrative. In France, the director of the Nantes Museum, Bertrand Guillet, says, in a museum, but that's the same in libraries, in fact, you are a producer of a discourse, so you imply things, and it is politics. And it's therefore necessary for libraries as well as for library associations of libraries to take a stance on the narrative they wish to convey, to reject neutrality, and to accept the risk involved. So to conclude, because I don't have a lot of time, on critical librarianship, as I outlined it here in a broad strokes, I have to say that critical librarianship used to be very important during the last 30 years in USA and in North America. But over the past decade or so, the critical library science movement seems to be losing the momentum. And it is at the very moment when democracy and social gains are under attacks in many countries that appear to have solid foundation of equality. And so first, I think we need to go on this critical stance and try to find a way to continue to train librarians and discuss this kind of attitude to think about what is happening here. But furthermore, I think we need to find a specific place for critical librarianship in Europe because it has never really managed to find its place here. And so because there are troubled times in this moment, we must revisit this question, but perhaps by combining North American-inspired critical library science with two other movements. The first one is having a European perspective drawn from the cultural studies of Hogarth and Stuart Hall to focus on the force of oppression, but while also recognizing the form of resistance of everyone. And the second movement is having an international perspective, drawing on decolonial thoughts from the global south and the work of Mignolio or Vivero de Castro and many others to view, in fact, the library from other places that have endured and resisted in ways and forms that elude our usual way of observe critics and scholars. So to do this, we will need to continue conducting research in library science first, and we will need researchers, specialists in this institution of knowledge. And I think it's a responsibility for us not to reject intellectualism while successful in making room for a different way of creating culture. And then, for us, we can turn libraries into a place of resistance in a troubled world and defend the values of emancipation that are so essential in our democratic society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Raphael, for this, should we call it a helicopter's perspective on critical librarianship and critical thinking. I think there are some really interesting questions there which link in so well to what we've been talking about. And I think you're right that in Europe, it's not something which has been maybe at the heart of the library school, but it's an important reflection on how we work. And as you said, this so much of what we do is in our everyday practice is taken for granted. Because we build on traditions and on practices from before, so sometimes it's very good and necessary to reflect. So I would like to give the word to our last speaker for this second session, Gloria Monge, who will address censorship challenges and the role of library associations in defending professional standards. Gloria?
Thank you.
Take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Okay, my name is Gloria Monge Rodriguez. I work as a librarian in Altea in Spain, and I'm here on behalf of the COBDCV, the official College of Librarians and Information Managers of the region of Valencia in Spain, hereafter the College, which is also a member of FESAVID, the National Federation of Librarians and Information Managers of Spain. I will talk about censorship in public libraries and to share what has happened in our region. Our today's contribution is the product of the research made by our colleague Dolores Lopez Asensi, and I'd like to highlight her work that I'm here sharing with you. Okay, censorship. When I was thinking about censorship, I was maybe you think the same as I was, that what comes to your mind when you hear this word censorship? Perhaps, as I was thinking, it comes to your mind the period of the dictatorial regime in the last century, but no. This is a fact that has been sadly happening a few years ago. Let me ask you a second question. Do you think the film Barbie is dangerous? Do you think it deserves to be censored? Well, this is exactly what has happened in the town of Borriana. That is a village in the region of Valencia, where our association had to step in to defend the professionals of the public library. Barbie, the film, is about female empowerment, and yet it was censored. And it wasn't the only case. Other titles dealing with sexual and gender diversity were also removed or restricted. Okay, the global rise of censorship, thank you. In recent years, many countries have documented an increase of censorship in episodes in libraries. The case of the United States of America is especially outstanding. According to the PEN America, the 2023 to 2024 school year saw over 10,000 titles removed from public and school libraries. Mostly books dealing with sexual diversity, gender identity, and LGBTQ+ rights. This is not only about removing books, it is about creating an organized structure of ideological control, often supported by well-founded groups influencing local councils and school boards. The echo in Europe. Next slide. In Europe, we cannot allow the echo of Trump to normalize these attempts at censorship. What is happening in Spain is not unnatural. It is the testing ground for a reactionary wave that wants to eliminate diversity from our shelves. Europe is and must remain the international benchmark for ethics and defense of diversity. In Spain, we have already lived 40 years of dictatorship. We cannot step back. That is why today I bring you two cases that have already raised every alarm in the Spanish library sector. the two cases, the first one was in Castelló. I think the slide, okay, thank you. The first happened in 2021 in Castelló de la Plana. A conservative association presented a complaint against the City Council for distributing books of sexual diversity in secondary schools libraries, and a judge subsequently ordered the temporary removal of 32 titles. The School Libraries Working Group from the College supports school libraries as places that give access to knowledge and learning, and also expresses its support to the Department of Culture, Feminism and LGBTQ+ of the City Council of Castelló de la Plana. The college states that books are one of the most important tools in libraries, and that removing the 32 titles is a step backwards for democratic freedom. The second case in our region was in Borriana, the public library, in between 2023 to 2024. A series of political interferences affected the professional work of the library team. It was about the cancellation of magazines in Valencia, the local and co-official language, obstacles to acquire LGBTQ+ and gender perspective books, the creation of a restricted section for materials on sexual family diversity, and the censorship of the film Barbie and the documentary 20,000 Species of Bees for themes of female empowerment and trans identity. The librarian team, led by its director, registered these actions, informed users, and requested a formal hearing in the local culture commission that created a climate of intimidation. The college responded to each action, defending the free access to information as a fundamental right, the independence of professional criteria in collection development, and the correct interpretation of the Valencian library law. At the national level, FESAVID supports this position through a manifesto. AGOST is outing Spain and also Europe. Its aim is to defend the right of all citizens to access information and culture without censorship. It also states that it will continue to report any attack of freedom of thought, expressions, or action in any type of library. Public libraries, in particular, are one of the greatest achievements of free and democratic societies. Okay, the escalation to the regional level in the laws, in the parliament. In December 2023, a proposal rated by the Valencian parliament claiming with zero evidence that books about sexual, family, and gender diversity were harmful for minors. It asked libraries in towns over 25,000 people to separate LGBTQ+ books from the rest, and if these stories were something dangerous or shameful. The college responded immediately. It goes directly against the Valencia library law, which says these materials must be visible and accessible to everyone. We met with almost all political groups, but the proposal was still approved by the alliance of the party from the right, Vox and Partido Popular. At the last minute, an amendment about scientific criteria was added, but it changed nothing. The core issue remains. Library collection must be guided by professional ethics, but not by fear or ideology. Okay, the legal professional principles. as you can see in the slide, the Valencian legal framework is clear and translate all the international organization standards. That is from the 12th article in the law of the 10th law of the 2007 and the 20th article from the 4th law in 2011. The international organization, IFLA, UNESCO, the Council of Europe, EBLIDA, all reject ideological, political, religious, or commercial censorship. The UNESCO Manifesto of 2022 states that library collections mustn't be subject to ideological or political censorship. FESAVID reinforced this by defending independence, objectivity, and the right of citizens to receive information without interference. Okay, now to conclude, the Valencian case shows us how censorship can begin subtly through pressure, misinformation, or political agendas, but it escalates quickly. Libraries are neutral spaces, but they cannot be neutralized. Collection must follow freedom and professional judgment, not political pressure. I will end with Federico García Lorca, a Spanish-European poet murdered in 1936 for thinking and loving differently as a symbol of censorship. Poetry does not want followers, it wants lovers. Libraries do not want ideological followers either. They want free citizens. This is why from here, from Spain, and here in the European Professional Associations, we say no to censorship. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Not least the take on Lorca's quote at the end. I thought that was very clever. We have quite a lot of questions in the chat, so I will go immediately to those so we can try and get through everybody's questions. Let's just see. Yep, from Milena, you had a question first, I think. Oh yeah, it came. Yeah, it's kind of repeated, so it takes a little time to read it. But how do Finnish libraries prepare for the kind of situation when society is polarized, when institutions are under pressure, or when citizens lose their trust in the public sphere? How can a library remain a forum of democracy when democracy itself becomes fragile? And that was for you, yes. I think, Elina. Yes.
Yeah. I had some time to answer to it already in the chat box.
Yeah.
So basically the aim of the project and what we are doing here in Sitra at the moment in the Democracy Innovations project is the idea that we would be the one society and we have a possibility to have dialogue and we have places to have those kind of dialogues and places to meet politicians. So we would be in the same boat and that's why that's the way how we are tackling that the polarization and the pressure. So we are already doing that work that it wouldn't be everyday life in Finland. That's what we hope. And of course then during the library project pilots, they had already their own rules, for example, how they invite different parties. So for example, in the panel discussion that they have to be every time at least 3 different parties, or that they invite all the parties during the 1 year, and those parties comes which can do that. So that's why it's equal for all the parties. So yes, they had their own rules also. And nowadays, of course, libraries have to be aware that what kind of meetings other peoples are organizing in the library. So they have to know what is happening, even if they are not organizing it by themselves.
Thank you, Elina. We have an interesting question here from Philip Wilson. To combat censorship, would it be possible to simply ignore the demands of the few? In the UK, a few years ago, there was a demand to ban EBLIDA and Roald Dahl. And for those of you who do not know these 2 authors, they are very EBLIDA, mainly children's books. Roald Dahl, both books for children and for adults. But Roald Dahl certainly had some very anti-Semitic views, which he was not ashamed to come forth with. Anyway, my branch manager said, thanks for bringing it to our attention, ignored the request to remove the books, as we knew our readers and community and the overwhelming majority wanted to keep the authors. So we ignored the demand to remove the books. And I'm just thinking in the whole discussion about censorship and what we keep on our shelves and what we remove, how do our panelists reflect on that? I think, Raphael, maybe you could take that one up as an example of thinking about practice and our collections and diversified.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question, because the question is, what is the few people? Sometimes the few people, they have the power, in fact. So it's I think it's what we see in USA, for example. It's a few people can have a lot of power if they are in the administration council or things like that. And we see that librarians who try to resist have many issues. And so I think it's, yeah, I would have the same solution, is saying, yeah, we can't, thank you for your attention, and but we don't. But in the same time, it's very important to understand why they want to ban Enid Blyton and Roald Dahl and so on, and trying to express also the position of the library. Why do we not want to do that? Why do we not want to ban Enid Blyton? And if we are not, I know it's difficult and I know it can be risky, but if we don't take this stance, who's going to do it? Not the people. So we need to know that we have still some institutions that are here to be ethical and so on, and that are not taken by the fact to be elected or so on, you know. So I know it's difficult, and I know in some part of the world it can be also risky, but the question is, why do we do this job? And I think it's for defending a certain view on emancipation and diversity and so on. So yeah, we can ignore demand, but it will not resolve the solution on the long term, I think. Yeah. But I know the difficulties.
Elina, Gloria, do you want to comment, or shall we take a new question? I think this is a really interesting issue because okay, we have a question for you, Elina, from Ivana. You have mentioned the gap in participation rates between active and non-active citizens. Can you tell us about the concrete numbers in percentage? And do you have statistics after 6 years about the dissemination of the pilot ideas from 2020 project to other libraries throughout the country? Quite a specific question.
Yeah, maybe I thank you for the question. Maybe I find some numbers also, but now I don't have those. I just know that voting turnouts have been declining, and we also have a so-called participation paradox in Finland. We have high trust in institutions, but citizen doesn't feel that they can easily influence decisions. That, of course, every election is possible to give your vote and have some impact in that way, but participation also between election and how to participate, what is happening near to you and your everyday life. Is it like at school or children care or in library or whatever, what's important to you. That's why we are development in Sitra now different participation methods also, that how we can participate decision making face to face, randomly selection, for example, panel discussion and deliberative ways, and also in digital platforms, using those which are not the social media platforms because they are the algorithms and so on. So that's why we are try to help people how they could easier to take part in the society, and of course libraries are part of that. And then the second questions, that what happens afterwards. Well, the 1 million euros granted by Parliament had been used. So then a permanent democracy grant for libraries was established. And through this permanent funding, more than 1 million euros has been awarded to 62 libraries for democracy work by 2026. So that's what is happening. But as I told you, that we have over 300 municipalities and 700 libraries, so we have still work to do.
And we have a last question, I think, here in the chat before we start to wrap up, from Astrid in Germany, who asked the question: in Germany, we are supposed to be neutral when it comes to political parties. But how do you handle the demands of political parties who want to dismantle democracy, to use the library as a stage to normalize their talking points? I don't know if that's something you sort of had to have a little bit of experience with to be able to answer. Raphael, were you?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I can. Do you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Yes.
I can try to answer Astrid with some points. We have the same situation in France, so I see what you mean. And so first answer will be: do we have a law, juridical accompaniment in our country? In France, we have a law, library law, since 2021, and it's not for nothing. During 1 century, nobody wants a law, and suddenly after 2020, different politics try to change that and to have a law, and all librarians were agree for once to have one. Why? Because we are seeing that things are changing and we need to have this strong juridical accompaniment. The second thing is, are librarians trained? Sometimes, and I see that a lot of libraries, they don't have a political, a documentary politics, a chart, a document that say what we can buy and what we can't buy and why. And this responsibility to be explicit, as I said in my presentation. And a lot of libraries don't have that because librarians are not trained to do that. And I think it's very important to be trained to be able to defend the values and position. And if we are not working on that in library schools, or if you're in your country there is no more library schools, I think it's difficult to learn that. And it's very important because this is with this kind of document that you can do advocacy or lobbying to your local government and or national stage or etc. So I think it's very important to have this expertises, that training that give you the assurance to create your own documentation. And the last point is resistance. In our country, when there was some extreme far right politics that tried to make a lot of censorship on the libraries, and they succeed, in fact, but there was some resistance of librarians and resistance of the inhabitants. So first resistance, you can continue to buy some other books. So it's very important to continue to have, as David Lenke say, conversation in the library. You can invite speakers and so on. And if you can't, one of the library in France, they did with the people, they took some books that were imposed by the political parties, and they changed it with some other books. So they really make a resistance, a library resistance. And also the last point is something we are working a lot on this now, that's participation of the public. The more you have people in the public, of the public that is participating to the organization, to the library, with their diversity, with their cultural rights, and the more they are here, the more their presence in the society will not be easily erased by political parties who are dreaming of that. So I think it's an engagement, a commitment we have to have in library to continue to work on the dignity of our citizens, fellow citizens. And this dignity is what is their place there, how they are present in our collection, in our services, and so on. So that's my answer. So I hope it's answering your question, Astrid.
Thank you, Raphael. Lena, Gloria, do you have a last comment, one of you, before we wrap up to this question?
I just think that it's a very important point to notice that if you are that what is the to be neutral, and how neutral libraries can be, as we have talked today. And that's a really important point also, that if some party want to like cap the take control of the library in the bad way. So that's why it's good that library have those rules beforehand, and everybody knows those, that how it's possible to use libraries, states and own rooms and so on.
Gloria?
Yes, I would like to highlight also the figure of associations to protect to librarians and information professionals in case the politicians, well, I think, yes, the term of the library has to be neutral and reflect all the society and the diversity and everything. I think that everybody should be agree, but when you see some people and some politicians affect to the professional job works, so it starts to be needed, or more than ever, to be with the background of association of professionals. That thing. What do you think about that? I think this is really important to protect and preserve collections and protect also citizens, the freedom.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for those last remarks, and a huge thank you to all our speakers today. I think it has been some different angles, some different perspectives on some very important issues, and it's been wonderful moderating. But perhaps even more wonderful has been the fact that I think I've learned a lot, or I'm going to be reflecting a lot. And a lot of what we've been talking about today is so important in order to complement and to frame the work of EBLIDA going forward. Because as I said, I think it was after Milena's intervention that the associations do have some power, do have some influence, and of course, so much of our raison d'etre as EBLIDA is advocacy work, making sure also that we coordinate advocacy work across national borders. And I think the questions raised here are so important. And thank you so much to everybody for coming along and being here today. It's always really difficult in some senses to get an impression about what the audience is like, because all the cameras are closed, we can't hear you, we can't see you. But I really hope that you've found it as engaging, as important as I think we have in the panel and in the EBLIDA community. Camilla, are you trying to tell me something? I see your hand is
Sorry,
up.
I
Yes.
think, I think Yelena has a last short presentation about the survey that she would like to
Good
launch
for reminding
now.
me. I had not forgotten, but yeah. We will definitely work further on many of the questions and the challenges that have been raised today within the EBLIDA structure. And please, because ELAN is a growing network, a living, dynamic network, please reach out to us if you have suggestions, ideas for future events like this, or just feel that it would be good to engage with the associations in Europe. Doesn't matter if you're a librarian, a library manager, an association person, or somebody just interested in the library community. We would love to hear from you and to engage with you and talk to you. And as Camilla reminded me, we will now ask Yelena to tell us about an exciting survey that is coming your way.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Camilla. It is my pleasure to be here. I'm bringing you greetings from the community of Serbian Library Association. I did my best to turn on the front camera, but it just doesn't work. So we will go just straight to the short presentation. Okay, just a second. Camilla, if it doesn't work, you can play it. Okay, maybe it is connected to the camera, and I will ask Camilla to share the presentation. So as a follow-up of today's webinar, it is my actually great pleasure to share that EBLIDA through ELAN project announces the launch of survey the effect of political environment on libraries. I have just a few slides to make this short announcement maybe a little bit interesting more. Great. Thank you, Camilla.
Do you see the slide? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. That's the one. We can just go to the next slide. So this international survey seeks to understand how political contexts influence the daily work, decision-making, and long-term development of libraries across Europe. It is open to library professionals at all levels, from entry staff to senior management, and across all types of libraries, including public, academic, school, national, and special institutions and libraries. Thank you. The survey explores 4 key areas. So it is daily practices like experiences with censorship, programming, and political influence, decision-making processes as the role of political actors in collections, staffing, and services. Institutional policy development, alignment with the international standards such as the IFLA and UNESCO Public Library Manifesto and the European Convention on Human Rights, and political expression and workplace dignity, like protection against harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. By collecting evidence from across Europe, the ELAN project aims to provide insight into the findings that will guide recommendations to uphold professional ethics, protect workplace dignity, and empower libraries to serve all communities equally. So, what is important that your voice matters. EBLIDA invites all library professionals in Europe to participate in this important survey and contribute to shaping a stronger, freer, and more resilient library sector. This survey that you will receive through the EBLIDA network will be open till the 31st of July this year, and the language of the survey is English. If any of the national associations, libraries would like to support librarians in own country with a sample survey in the national language, the survey will file of the survey will be available for the download too. So shortly it will be launched, and you will have it in your email inboxes, and you are warmly welcome to share it within your own professional networks, associations, and your contacts within your country. Thank you, and please don't forget that it is very important to have all of your voices here, so we have a clear picture of all, and our guidance that we are planning to do after all works for everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jelena. I hope that as many of you as possible will disseminate this to colleagues and to any other constituents which you feel would be relevant in this context. We have a newsletter coming out at the end of this month, the EBLIDA newsletter, where we will, of course, also just remind everybody of this survey and other ELAN or EBLIDA activities that are coming up in the rest of the year. So please take a look at that newsletter. It's a good place to get an overview of what is happening. I think we are nearing the end, and I always think that one of the greatest achievements of any moderator is to deliver a session like this on time. So I'm clapping at myself, but I would also like us to give everybody who can turn on their microphones, that we just give a round of applause to our speakers, to those that were on board today, and also to my colleagues at EBLIDA, Ines and Camilla, for making sure that I didn't screw up all the technical things along the way. And yeah, have a good rest of the afternoon, and a quick thank you very much. It's 29:59. Have a great afternoon, and enjoy lunch if that's where you're going now. Bye-bye, and hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.